What is unexpected infant death? SUID. You'll see these terms referred to quite often, so it's helpful to get to know what SUID is as versus SIDS. So SUID is sudden unexpected death. So it's when a baby dies unexpectedly. So SUID covers all unexpected infant deaths, the explained and unexplained. So this is, or unexplained infant deaths would be something like poisoning or any kind of injury, a metabolic disorder, neglect or homicide, hypo or hyperthermia, or accidental suffocation. Those can all be explained by a medical examiner or a coroner. Unexplained infant deaths are deaths like SIDS, sudden infant death syndrome, or causes unknown or unspecified, like for example, cannot rule out suffocation from an unsafe sleep environment. We'll have some activities that will go over what an unsafe sleep environment would be, but it's something that soft bedding or a lot of materials in the baby's sleep area or toys and stuff like that. So this is just another way of looking at the different types of sudden unexpected infant death. So this is the overarching umbrella, and then all the different unexpected ways babies can die. And so many of deaths get classified as unknown, which is really challenging to try to figure out what you can do to prevent those. Approximately 4,200 babies die of sleep-related sudden unexpected infant deaths, and about half of those sudden unexpected infant deaths are categorized as SIDS. So other death terms are like sleep accidents, such as accidental strangulation, accidental suffocation, overlay, which is when a parent or whoever's sleeping, sharing a bed with the baby, accidentally rolls over on the baby. And then wedging or entrapment, so like baby is sleeping on an adult surface and then gets trapped between the bed and the wall.
One of the things we're finding out is that different communities are using different terms. Sometimes the term sudden infant death syndrome does not resonate with people, and people say, my baby doesn't have a syndrome, my baby's healthy, you know, that there's nothing wrong with my baby. And so, for example, like in Michigan, the Michigan Healthy Start Project, the tribes involved in the Michigan Healthy Start Project, decided to use the term accidental infant death. That term was clear, it resonated with people, accident, infant death. And that some of these other terms, strangulation, suffocation, sudden infant death syndrome, were not as, didn't speak to the people as much as accidental infant death, and that's the term they're using.
Now we'll really delve into what SIDS is. SIDS is the sudden death of an infant that's younger than 1 year old that remains unexplained after a thorough case investigation that includes a complete autopsy, an examination of the death scene, and then a review of the clinical history of the infant. And so, as Jara said earlier, SIDS is a catch-all category. So if the medical examiner or coroner can't really determine if it was an accidental suffocation or entrapment or something like that, they'll just lump it into SIDS, but only after all of these steps have been undertaken. About 2,226 babies died from SIDS in the U.S. in 2009. SIDS rates are declining in the U.S., but there are still disparities that exist among certain communities. There's still so much that we need to do to reduce the risk of SIDS, because we want every baby to have a chance to grow up and be successful members of our community. So SIDS is the leading cause of infant death between 1 month and 1 year of age. It's a sudden silent medical disorder. It's only determined after an autopsy, examination of the death scene, and a review of the medical records. And it's 2 to 4 times more likely to occur in American Indian and Alaska Native families. Since we don't know the cause, we can't prevent SIDS, but we do know risk factors. So what we can do is reduce the risk of SIDS. SIDS is not preventable, like I just mentioned, but risks can be reduced. It's not caused by suffocation, and it's not caused by vaccines. SIDS is not contagious. It's not the result of child abuse or neglect. It's not caused by crib. It's not caused by choking or vomiting. And it's not the cause of every unexplained infant death or unexpected infant death. So this is just another data slide showing the proportion of deaths due to SIDS in urban Indian communities. So you can see it's statistically significantly higher than it is for all other races. We have to have data to tell our stories because that's what funders are requiring. Now you can see it's not even 0.6 for all other races, but for American Indian, Alaska Native families, it's almost 1.4. And this is broken down, SIDS rates broken down by the northern tier area. And you see, here's Portland, this is our area, and you can see here's US all races. And again, there's statistical significant difference. So as I mentioned earlier, there's been a lot of research going on into trying to figure out what causes SIDS. There was a study that came out 2-3 years ago that was looking at brainstem abnormalities, and they published, I can't remember what journal they published in, but they had some really interesting findings that came out of that. There's also some genetic susceptibility that people are looking at. They're also looking at things that might affect the infant's lack of coordination of the vital systems, such as breathing and blood pressure, temperature, and reflexes, and then waking and sleeping. But these alone aren't likely to cause SIDS. There's a whole lot of other factors that go into it.
Studies from researchers at Children's Hospital in Boston showed that the brains of babies who died of SIDS had abnormalities in the nerve cells that make serotonin. Now that may or may not mean anything to you depending on what you know about serotonin, but serotonin is a chemical messenger and a neurotransmitter, and it works in the part of the brain that controls functions like breathing, body temperature, blood pressure, heart rate, and waking from sleep. I'm on page 26 if anybody wanted to look that up. So this serotonin, when serotonin is missing, one of the things that may not happen is the baby's breathing may not be regulated well. The person who made our prayer, what was your name? Linda. Linda was mentioning something about her grandson who didn't breathe, couldn't breathe during sleep. Is that how it was? So that's one of the things that they're finding out in terms of susceptibility, is that some babies are born with some abnormalities, some brainstem abnormalities, where the normal mechanisms for breathing and temperature control aren't there. So what the triple risk theory tells us is that there's a critical period where babies develop, both fetally and when they're newborns. And during that time, for example, say we have a baby that has a lack of serotonin or a very diminished serotonin. So this baby has a risk factor already, right? His brain or her brain does not tell her to breathe regularly. So when she goes to sleep, she goes too deeply into sleep, right? So that's a critical development period. Then you have some outside stressors. Say the mom smokes, or say the infant lives in an environment where there's smokers, and we have a lot of secondhand smoke. Say we have a mom who has been using alcohol her entire pregnancy. So we have some stressors. Then we have a vulnerable infant. Say that infant lives in a household that is highly stressed, that it's unsafe, it's too cold or too hot. It has, it has something in that environment that makes that infant more vulnerable. So these three things together, the fact that we have a critical development period where the baby's lacking something, the fact that we have outside stressors, usually behavioral things such as smoking, drinking, that kind of stuff. Then we have a vulnerable infant, poverty, right? Those kinds of issues. Those three things together is one of the theory that causes SIDS, that to have this alone, or to have this alone, or to have this alone, may not make a baby at high enough risk to cause SIDS. So when you have infants that have these three things in place, they are more likely to die of SIDS. So for example, a baby like that who the parents overbundle and overheat and has a brainstem issue where he or she doesn't wake up, that's a baby that's at higher risk. Then you have a smoker or somebody who gets into bed who is using alcohol and is rolling too close to the baby, perhaps smothering the baby. Those are the kinds of things. We have a compounding situation. It's typically what we're finding out is what causes SIDS.